did transition pictures for Paramahansa Yogananda, the Indian guru who died in 1952. Steve Jobs was an acolyte, George Harrison was an acolyte. This guy, actually he was American. He lived in America for the last 32 years of his life, I think, and he started the Self-Realization Fellowship, which has centers in America and India, and has been very, very influential to a lot of people. He was a guy who was all about experiencing God, raising mortal consciousness to the perfect God consciousness as much as possible. Simple life, a centered life. He published his autobiography of a Yogi, in 1946, and that really has impacted people for decades since. It's still one of the top 100 best-selling spiritual books of all time, I think. When I went in there to his energy, there was this, I'm gonna call it a jewel, but I don't quite know what it was, but it was almost like an impish sprite type spirit, just floating in midair. Not light, but some object. And it was bouncing around this metaphorical cave thing that I see, experiencing the moment, almost glad to be in this position. But then it developed arms and legs and became him. So now, instead of being able to fly around, he was standing there in this symbolic cave, not quite sure why he had arms and legs. Shouldn't I be that sprite flying around? Aren't I a divine being? What is going on? He was very confused by this. His aspirations for being divine seemed to be stymied by reality. I mean, we're all divine beings. We all have this splinter of the divine inside us. But I guess he thought at the end of his life that he was it. That he was going to be like Buddha, like Jesus, this glowing orb of light, of blinding perfection. Instead, he was walking around and his aspirations weren't met. But I'm Yogananda. I wrote that book in 1946. Millions follow me. The tunnel was there. Same one I always see. This time, though, there was a set of steps up. Really steep, actually. Lots and lots of steps. Oh, right. This is the shortcut. People like myself, that's where we go. He began climbing these steps, hungrily waiting to meet God. But the stairs went nowhere. This is so odd. He comes back down. Okay, well in that case, I will tackle this slope through this tunnel with integrity and with dignity. And he began walking in a very strong, determined way, embracing this experience. Gets to the top of the tunnel. And I hate to say this, but once again, I got a very, very strong feeling that he felt as though he was really important. And in many ways he was. To his followers, he was. But this doesn't translate to the transitions because you're not great after you die. You're great before you die. But afterwards, all that slips away. As if to emphasize this, when he got to the top of the tunnel, there was this massive cavernous space. Now, from being this larger-than-life important person that he'd arrived as, he was now tiny, 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 when set against this amazing cavern. As if the universe was saying, you need to get a sense of proportion. When you're here, you're no more, no less than everybody else. And I thought he preached humility, actually, because spirituality brings with it humility. Whereas religion is based on fear. Spirituality, sacred. Religion, scared. Scared of God. Scared of hell. Scared of breaking the rules. And so on. And so I thought he was probably quite a humble person anyway, but somehow this seemed to be like a reminder to him of his position as an eternal being, that we're all the same size. There is no greatness in the afterlife. In fact, the dome that I always see, the light that we go into, ultimately, metaphorically, was in a side anteroom over here. And he stood in front of it, thinking he was going to get more of a reception than this, I think. Like, no ceremony. No, whenever you're ready, just step in. I mean, no petals and no singing and chanting. I mean, nothing. Whenever you're ready, pal, just climb in. It's fine. I didn't know anything about the guy, so I can't jump to conclusions about how he was as a person. But all these pictures seem to suggest that he had quite a high opinion of himself. That by being a guru to so many devoted people, and justifiably so, he'd also talked himself into believing that he was great, with a capital G. And had like a gold engraved invitation to meet with God when he died. That kind of thing. But no, whenever you're ready, pal, just step in. It was almost like there was a set of net curtains there that he just pulled aside and went, okay, fine. Stepped in, the curtains closed behind him, and he was gone. Then he found out the truth. And how much of his personal philosophy and his belief system was congruent with how the universe works. It's only then that we find out how our beliefs stand up to reality. And that's what lay behind the net curtain for him. So interesting. So, a good man, a noble guru, somebody who really seemed to have their heart and mind in the right place, but who may have come to believe in his own story a little too much. And it's just a story. Doesn't necessarily marry with what the reality is once we cross over. Doesn't mean we shouldn't believe it. But believing something, I said this in Masterpiece actually, believing something doesn't make it true. It just makes it true for you. And that's what seemed to have happened here. His tribal meta-narrative, his script, had to be rewritten according to the reality of what actually happened after he experienced the tunnel and the light and so on. Amazing. Not what I expected at all. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Subscribe if you like. That would be great. I'd love that. Like, share the video. Follow me on Twitter if you like, @CashPeters. Otherwise, I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.